Tech for Africa.
A silent revolution is sweeping through the corridors of justice. Courtrooms once ruled by paper and precedent are now feeling the pulse of algorithms and automation. In this AI-driven age, the legal profession stands at a fork in the road: adapt or risk becoming obsolete. This is not just about machines replacing clerks or chatbots answering legal queries. This is about a new kind of lawyer, one who understands both the language of law and the logic of code. This is LegalTech 2.0, where advocacy meets artificial intelligence, and legal intuition must now work hand in hand with digital literacy. But how do we prepare for this future? What must the modern lawyer know, learn, and unlearn to remain relevant in the AI era? And more importantly, what does this transformation mean for developing nations or developing legal systems like ours across Africa and the global south? Tonight, we're joined by someone who doesn't just talk about the future of law, he builds it. Abhijeet is a pioneer in AI, EdTech, and legal transformation. And together, we will explore how to upskill, where to start, and why this moment is Africa's and the global South's biggest opportunity. Welcome to Wivo Legal Tech for Africa, where we decode the future of law one conversation at a time. Abhijeet, namaste.
Namaste, namaste, Vivo, and namaste and pranam to everyone, and hi everyone, all my colleagues in UK. Thank you very much for the kind introduction, and especially for the namaste, Vivo.
कैसे हो?
मैं बहुत अच्छा हूँ, and on a side note, I just wanted to tell everyone, all of this, whatever is speaking right now in Hindi, he keeps taking all my classes. So all credit about this namaste, kaise ho, all of this goes to me, especially for all those Bollywood songs which he keeps singing for everyone.
Are you sure? Because I used to listen to Bollywood songs back home. Anyways, thank you so much. I mean, you've been a good teacher so far, so good, and my Hindi has been getting better and better by the day. Once again, welcome to the podcast or the vodcast, whatever you call this. This is a space where we discuss legal tech and as well discuss the future of the law, because we are now at a crossroad, especially for us that are coming from nations in the global south. Let's start by discussing what is this LegalTech 2.0. I mean, we, of course, to my mind, we're talking about transition from traditional way of doing things and to a new era, which it's like we said, it's at a crossroad, and there is whether it's one that enhances productivity, and some people are seeing it as a risk, and it's here to replace their job or career. So take us through Legal Tech 2.0.
Okay, so Legal Tech 2.0, as per me, refers to a new wave of legal technology that goes beyond basic digitization into advanced automation and AI-driven tools. Early legal tech solutions used to focus more on paper to digital. For example, online databases, be it as your case management or your traditional contract lifecycle management, and definitely the rudimentary document assembly tools. In contrast, I feel Legal Tech 2.0 is characterized by some of the intelligent systems that now are able to learn, analyze, and even generate content. In fact, the wave is so strong this year that this year has been named for AI agents. And it is being said that the next year will all be named for multi-AI agents, at which point of time, probably we will be discussing about Legal Tech 3.0. So I think this shows that we are definitely moving beyond typical briefs and chatbots into a future where AI gives us smarter tools, sharper insights, and amazing efficiency. I was looking at some of the recent reports from the American Bar Association, which shows that nearly 79% of lawyers now are using AI tools, and that's actually around approximately 300% increase from year 2023. And I think this is not just a technological trend.
Wow.
I see this as a fundamental shift how legal work is now being done. And if I have to talk about some of these AI tools, how are revolutionizing this entire concept of legal tech 2.0 is mostly in the field of, say, AI research and drafting tools. Then I see various of these tools now are using large language models to answer complex legal questions and draft documents. In fact, I've been reading that the big names like Harvey Legal, which is now quite being valued almost 5 billion USD dollar. They have recently launched their agentic models to automate the entire end-to-end legal workflows. Similarly, I see there are now advanced tools on document review for contracts, litigation documents, and definitely I see them improving more than merely a sanity check or proofreading tools. Now
Yeah.
I see these tools are able, if I have to talk more on the contracting sphere, I think these tools are now able to flag risky clauses or suggest modifications in terms of the firm's playbook. And also you're having option to compare new contracts against the old one, whatever you have negotiated in the past. So, and that's actually an interesting aspect, because typically when you look for an enterprises, there are always lawyers which keeps on changing. So now with the help of these tools, actually you can gain insights that how the same tool or how the same deal was being negotiated by the previous lawyers, which actually makes it completely a data driven insight. So I
Abhijit,
think,
let me hold you there. Sorry. You are one of those people behind the code, I would say, you know, some what's going on behind the code. A lawyer from the global south is not, with all due respect to us, who we are not as far as where the world is right now. I would say, I mean, that's the reality. And I'm sorry if I'm saying this. So, can you tell us, how do we get here? What's going on behind the scene? Why do we have to trust a tool that automates documentation or a tool that generates contracts? You know, why should we shift from this traditional way of drafting contract and relying on this? Like you said, we are going now to 3.0, the AI agent. I mean, let's get that background first. Let's get that out of the way.
okay, if you're asking about transactional side of it, we
Yes.
would typically, whenever you go and negotiate deals, if you look more from a firm perspective or a law firm perspective, or for any company, especially for in-house lawyers, you always look for standardization. Okay, think from an example that when you are negotiating a deal, there are different lawyers who will go and negotiate deals, but you cannot just simply let it go that if lawyer A wanted to negotiate this deal this way, he will go by his way. If lawyer B wants to negotiate the deal in a different way, he will do it in a different way. Typically, when you are representing a law firm or you're representing a client, you want to standardize whatever you do more from an organizational perspective. Right now, why do we need these tools is purely to standardize, so that we are not working purely on the whims and fancies of the lawyers who are leading the deals. And these data driven tools actually gives you that benefit. I was reading there is a new technology which has of course now been implemented by a lot of organizations, that is called RAG, that is retrieval augmented generation. Typically this technology now is able to analyze all your deals whichever you have executed in the past by lawyers, and now it has potential to suggest the new lawyer who is dealing the same deal or negotiating the same deal, giving him insights that how the same deal was negotiated in the past by various lawyers. Now, how this actually helps? Number one, it definitely increases your efficiency. Okay, so earlier what you were being doing for a couple of weeks, now the time is now being cut in couple of hours. Second benefit which you get or more from an organizational perspective is standardization. Now you actually know that, okay, this is how the things have been going in the past. This has been my standard way of doing it by this particular company, and I need to do it the same way. The entire game is about getting standardization and getting more a data driven insight. And definitely with this new large language models or AI agents, we are able to standardize and automate the entire flow. And that's where our answer lies.
All right, perfect. Perfect. So, from what you're saying, what I got from what you're saying is there's two things involved. One is there are roles which are at risk, and there are also ones which this new technology will enhance, whether it's on an organizational point of view or whatever perspective one may want to look at it. So, what in your mind, or rather in your estimation, which legal roles are at risk, and which ones are evolving?
Okay, that's a fantastic question. However, before I think we discuss upon which roles are at risk or which might evolve, let me address the elephant in the room. That is, are we lawyers going to get replaced? Because that's one of the minute you ask me which roles are at risk, that means you're hinting towards that you may feel a probability that lawyers may get replaced. My bit on that is no. I think lawyers who use AI will replace those who don't. In other word, if you're talking about risk, in my personal opinion, I feel the biggest risk is not that AI will replace your job. It is that another human lawyer using AI will actually outcompete you. And if you look this from a different aspect, is because whenever we talk about whether our roles are at risk, we also need to think what we do. Okay. So is being a lawyer is just mean a sum of automatable task? As per my answer is no. I think being a lawyer is more than merely a sum of automatable task, because successful lawyering requires qualities, capabilities that currently AI simply do not have. A lawyer's, I think he learns from his experience how to read subtle cues from the client, how to narrate a persuasive argument before the jury, or how to find a mid ground to make a win-win deal for a client. That is more from a transactional aspect. So I think AI, by contrast, is nothing more than a sophisticated prediction machine. So I think definitely it can string all patterns together, analyze a different amount of data, but definitely it cannot replace all these aspects which typically a lawyer requires in his day-to-day course.
So, from would you agree with me that there is an hybrid profession being born here, meaning the lawyer, of course, a traditional lawyer, and a lawyer who is tech savvy, who understands how to use or utilize these tools. And then, according to you, the one that is tech savvy stands to gain and stands to outcompete the one that is not appreciating or embracing these new technologies. So, can you emphasize on what exactly the one that is tech savvy stands to gain? Can you further elaborate on that?
Okay. So one who is tech savvy, what he is going to, how he's going to outcompete you, because you might do the same job, same review, same drafting, say it in a couple of weeks. He will use AI, use with all his smarter technology, do the same job in 3 days. So he's basically showing himself more efficient in his work. Okay. If you look to a broader picture and think more as an organizational perspective, the firms, I think the real question is firms using AI and firms who are not using AI. Because think from a business perspective, think from a client perspective, every client wants the job done within a day or two. But we all know when we do it manually, it's actually one of the most possible difficult tasks to meet the deadline, given the work is too much and the time is so less. In these scenarios, if you do not use AI, then you are actually showing your inefficiency, because parallelly some other firm and lawyers within the firm might be using AI to do the same task more efficiently, more effectively within less time. And definitely the accuracy of what you might be doing probably might be more there, because they're all purely working on a data driven insight. This is how this industry is going to get impacted. And if you think more from a nuanced perspective, that whether this might be a risk for some of the roles, I think some of the roles which may require uh, revolution will be mostly roles related to junior lawyers and paralegal, because right now what they do mostly is can be automatable. But I think here is an opportunity as well, because if these roles will be doing jobs which actually will be done by AI tomorrow, then typically the shift will focus more on a high value work. Basically, these juniors and paralegals, which are right now just doing nothing more than proofreading, doing some basic research, tomorrow they may have to shift to a high value work in terms of real advocacy and client counseling. And I think that's how typically the industry should work, because whatever things which we can automate, we should do it. And as a lawyers, we should focus more on the strategic and advocacy oriented decisions.
Okay, thank you. So now that takes us to the next segment of our show. What do we need? What does the 21st century lawyer needs to cope with this era? I mean, what are the skills as lawyers do we need to have to ensure we are part and parcel of whatever is going on?
I think today's lawyer uh, may have to equip themselves with prompt engineering. I have been always promoting this concept because the way we are going towards integration of AI in our daily routine job, we have to understand that whatever instructions we are writing to AI is actually correct in a correct form, in a correct manner, so that AI understands what output it needs to generate. And that typically is known as prompt engineering. Because the quality of AI output is directly dependent on what you put as an input. So, for example, we have been discussing on the contractual elements. Say, if I want AI to draft me a contract and I just simply say, draft me a contract, I may definitely get too generic output. Why? Because my instruction is itself generic. I have to actually mention if I want a more accurate and a precise result, I have to mention what kind of contract. Is it a non-disclosure agreement? Then what side are you representing? Is it a disclosing party? Is it a receiving party? What are the jurisdiction? What are the key terms? Which is the governing law? How detailed you want it? This will actually help AI to understand your requirement and generate a better and a more detailed output. So I think lawyers will get better results from AI by learning how to tailor them using prompts and instruction. The second thing I think which lawyers would need is to work on their critical thinking ability, because since we have been discussing on automating tasks, and we have been discussing on how the vast capabilities of AI to analyze the patterns, I think all lawyers typically will get into a role of a human in loop, which we have been discussing all the way around. So if all lawyers needs to be, if they all want to be good reviewers, then they typically need to work on their critical thinking skills so that they can understand the output generated by AI is right or wrong, and how further it can be modified. And the last skill, which I would like to recommend to all my future lawyers, especially in this AI era, is they all need to work on their creativity and emotional intelligence. Because uh, if AI is handling all your routine drafting, so every human lawyer needs to work on how do they communicate this well to the client. Because how do they do negotiation, how do they argue before the court to make their arguments more persuasive. And I think this is going to be the differentiator in today's AI era for all the future lawyers.
Okay, that's great. From all these different set of skills that you've mentioned, in your estimation, which of them do you think is practically it's more pressing for the lawyer to know and to upskill?
Out of all these skills, I think the critical thinking element is really important, because there are inherently a lot of ethical issues with respect to AI. Because let's be also fair on a point that AI will not always give you the right answers. AI is nothing more than a tool. It all depends how you use it. It may give you right, it may give you wrong. So how do you determine whatever you have given or whatever you're using right or wrong? Is only when you understand yourself, you know the basics of law, and more than basics, you understands all the nuances whatever you're working on. Otherwise you might, my apprehension is, if lawyers start believing that whatever AI is generating is right, then tomorrow they might end up in something called automation bias. Because that's another concern which people are talking about. People have these days now are believing that whatever is generated by AI is absolutely right, which is not the case.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you want to actually get out of this rabbit hole of automation bias, then you need to upskill your critical thinking abilities. You need to know what is law, how it has to be implemented, what are the nuances, what are the fundamentals. Then only you can actually ponder about it, and you decide whether you want to use this output or you want to modify for your work.
All right.
That's going to be a critical element.
Great. So let's take this thing more practical now. How do we upskill ourselves practically? What are this different set of tools out there that we should learn as lawyers to help us, being part of the moment?
See, I think if we're talking about upskilling more from a legal
Yeah, I
tech
mean,
perspective.
from a legal tech perspective, such as I know you're currently working. I mean, you may be using tools. I mean, this is something I ask all of my guests that comes to this show. What skills are you? What tools are you using currently? Some have said Notebook LM, some Coursera. You know, all these other things that are out there. So I want to tap in your experience now to get what are the tools you think that are essential for lawyers right now.
I think my suggestion has been always use all the tools. Do not
Mhm.
get restricted to one particular tool. I mean, personally,
Well,
I would
well, wouldn't
recommend.
that be expensive? Because most of these tools we are paying for them. Don't you think
Yeah.
that would be too much?
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah.
But Vivo actually, what I would recommend, I'm not saying you take subscription of all the tools. These days, there is a new uh, business model. How these service providers are working is something called freemium model. Okay. Typically, in this freemium model, there are certain features which you get for free, and there are certain advanced features which you have to pay for it. My suggestion is please try to use as many as tool possible. Say, for example, Anthropic's Claude is really nice. Gemini is really nice. Notebook LM is really nice. Chat GPT, of course, is nice. I sometimes like Grok as well to some extent because it has got some of the deep research capabilities, which actually helps. But the question is, don't rely on one particular tool because sometimes when you're trying to explore these areas, you actually have to get your hand dirty. Unless you get your hand dirty, you will not be able to understand the capabilities, what all these tools are capable of doing it, as well as most importantly, what all they cannot do it. Because in this era of AI, we need to understand both what is possible, what is not possible. So then you have a clear distinction and then accordingly can work around your output, whatever you have requested AI to generate. So my suggestion is try to use as many as tool. There are a lot of tools available as a freemium model. Try those tools, take the demo versions, and I have been also advising everyone try to get enroll yourself in courses and certifications to upskill your skills because you can only utilize maximum out of these tools unless you know how to use it, and how to use it will actually depend if you have to enroll yourself in these courses. There are various courses like AI for lawyers, legal tech, digital transformation, a lot of courses on prompt engineering. And the good thing about these courses are all of them are self-paced, so you just have to dedicate some few hours or a week, and then according to your schedule learn more about how technology and AI is now being intermingled for the legal system, and that's how you can increase your tech fluency.
What are the ethical considerations? Let's start with the ethical consideration before we go to the legal factor. What are the ethical consideration in using in using these tools?
Okay, so the two major ethical consideration is biasness and fairness, and the other is of course the transparency or the explainability part of it. To some extent, as I was discussing a few minutes back, that every output generated by AI will not be correct. Why? Because a lot of times, lot of studies have got to know that there are some inherent biasness in AI because AI models can unintentionally perpetuate biases present in their training data set. And there are a lot of reasons how why bias can happen. Say, for example, the training data set is itself biased. A lot of recent cases, like I think 2 days back, the case of Grok, where Grok was supporting some of the work done by Hitler. That's nothing but a classic case of biased
Biasness,
training
yes.
data. So similarly, I think a year back we saw this
I
case
have
of.
I've never used Grok before. I don't know. I mean, what's your experience with it?
No, I think Grok is if you ask me, as I mentioned, there is no one size fit all approach for everything, but to some extent, for some work, Grok gives you good results. It has got some deep research capabilities, which can actually determine a goal-oriented nature of the models and then give you a better results comparative to other tools. But again, as a word of caution, no tool in this era is perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, every tool comes up with its own capabilities, And why? Because every tool is trained on different data set. Grok
Yeah.
is trained on different data set because what we understand Grok's business is more or less trained on the social media data set, the way it originates. Gemini is more trained on the academic literature because Google has got a lot of e-books and the Google Scholar that gives a huge content for AI models to get trained on, get accuracy. Chat GPT is trained on certainly more diverse data sets. So as I mentioned again, there is no one size fit all approach for anything. You have to keep using it so that you understand which works out for well for which task. So
So
biased, coming back to the question,
yes.
biasness is one major issue, and the second issue, a lot of times, why biasness happens is because of lack of diverse data set, and then there are labeling issues as well, feedback issues, and interestingly, there is sometimes historic bias itself in the data because what if your training data set itself is biased? That's a classic case again, which happened in the USA, right? And the second issue is again the transparency and explainability part of it. The what we typically call it as black box issue, because you really don't know what is the input, what is the output, but you don't know where it is coming from. That's nothing more than a black box issue, and I think we all need to work on the explainability part of it to make AI more explainable and responsible for the society.
Abhijit, I don't want to sound redundant here, but one major concern that most of the guests that have come to this show have expressed is that most of these models are created by people with different culture, different background, different lifestyle to us here in the global south. So I want to take you a little bit to digital colonialism. So they're thinking they would impact us with their ideas and their knowledge and their culture by way of using these tools, just as it has been with the internet and other technologies that have come before AI. So what do you think about that? What do you make of that? What's your own view on that?
See, I think this issue is more or less related to the how to what extent AI can influence you. Okay. Again, as I mentioned, you treat AI just as a resource. Okay, this issue is not something new. Of course, we are giving these fancy words, but if you ask me, before the AI era, there used to be a lot of political opinion by different editors on social media or on newspapers. My question is, were they enough to influence you? Of course, no, right? Why? Because you have your own thinking capacity. You know have your own understanding what is right and what is wrong.
Yes.
Similarly, AI is nothing more than a resource. Okay,
Yes.
so whenever this question comes to me, whether AI can influence your thinking, my answer is no, right? Because why? Because before AI also there used to be different perspective about the same thing. AI is nothing but has added a layer over it, right? So that's why you need to focus on your thinking ability so that you are able to demarcate what is right and wrong, unless following the path what AI is showing you.
You see, that is the concern here because is the issue of reliability and gullibility. And one thing we have, especially for us here in Africa, most of our people are gullible, and that doesn't mean it's the lesser people of society. Even the so-called elites are also gullible. Most of the people in this part of the world tend to believe whatever they see or whatever they hear, and if someone has their own idiosyncrasies and inputted that in a data set that is propagating to a larger audience, and this is the concern with many people. I understand where you're coming from. It all boils down to the individual on how you consume the information and how you work with the information. Nonetheless, let's move ahead with the legal part of it now. What are the legal implications? Because this has to be with a cross-jurisdictional perspective of its use. So to your mind, and you have been working on this sector for a while now, what do you think are the legal challenges?
Again, I mean, if I look purely, because see, every industry will have different implications. If I have to, since we're talking about the legal industry right now, so mostly I see confidentiality and privacy. Okay, why? Because One of the major issue which I'm seeing is a lot of times we tend to upload some of our confidential files on large language models, be it as ChatGPT or Gemini. And eventually, we do not realize that this same data could actually be used to train AI models by the service provider. And that eventually could be a huge leakage at your front. And this again correlates the issue with the data security and privacy, right? Because typically these models needs to be regulated in terms of the, if it's, of course, if it's EU, then it has to be regulated in terms of the GDPR provisions. And the classic example of the privacy is actually DeepSeek, which is an open source model. Because I think this is a latest news about a couple of months back where there were a lot of privacy issues being faced, and some of the regulators in EU they have sanctioned DeepSeek and have requested for further investigation because of the security concerns. So, answer to all these issues, whether it's about misinformation, whether it's about biasness, whether it's about legal issue, is we all need to now work together to work on some certain auditing and certification mechanisms. All these service providers needs to be audited. I think there needs to be a separate regulatory body who should be given responsibility to audit their training data set so that we all understand why this model is giving this result, what is the cost for it, and we can make AI more safer for the community.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. If you're just joining us, this is your podcast, weekly podcast, Legal Tech for Africa, with me, Mohammed Wurie Bah, and we're here together with a colleague, Abhijeet, who is a lawyer, practicing lawyer in India, and as well an AI pioneer. Abhijeet, I know you don't want this, but we have to talk about it. We have to talk about your model. I know it's in a very early stage. Tell us what you're doing currently in this field.
Okay. So I am a practicing lawyer and I am a AI enthusiast. I'm presently it's been last 4 years. I have been leading a legal tech startup in my capacity as a director, and I have been working upfront to integrate AI into legal operations. We work in different areas for different law practice areas. Say, for example, for transactional work, we build tools helping lawyers with their automated AI-enabled review. We also have a huge repository of contract and clauses over 2 million plus contracts and 60 million plus clauses. And for litigation, we are working and training all these AI models, which can tomorrow help lawyers to automatically draft their pleadings, review the opponent's pleading, help them to suggest the case laws. And to some extent, we also work for judiciary because we see one of the major issues, especially in global south, is of judicial pendency. Especially if I talk about India, it's presently 54 million plus cases which are right now pending in courts. And if I look to the root causes such as low judge population ratio, lack of infrastructure, I think we all need to work towards using AI to helping judges to automate this entire process. And of course, at the end, it's judge who's going to take the decision. So we work in different areas, and our intent is, of course, to make legal system more accessible and easier for the legal community.
Perfect. That's a wonderful thing going on there. And that model of yours, is it just for India, or can other nations benefit from it?
At present, of course, it's for India because, as I mentioned to you, all this technology depends on the data set, right? So we presently have all of this data set all based from Indian jurisdiction. To further expand our resources to different jurisdiction, we might probably need to work on their training data set. But at this stage, it is, of course, focusing on India. We might intend to further expand our work to help the legal community across the worldwide.
So if a pioneer or someone with a mindset like yours is currently listening to this and is here in Africa, how do you go about doing it? Like you said, you collate judgments, and the objective is to help judges to come out with a decision by way of automation. So what does the person needs to do?
See, Vivo, this is not something which you can achieve overnight.
Good.
It takes years of hard work. Okay. But first thing, if someone who's trying to solve this issue of judicial pendency in Africa, I think the first primary step is you need a huge case law data set. Unless you have that, it's going to be very difficult to train LLM models, because typically then there is a major issue called lack of diverse data set. So if you do not have adequate data set, then probably you end up not making your model accurate, and that's a major concern. Then of course you need a huge team of editors helping you to annotate the entire data set and then gradually train the LLM on every different aspect, and then further train it using the human in loop approach. Okay, so there has to be continuous feedback session between human and AI to further help it understand what is right, what is wrong. So things like this does not happen overnight, but of course you need a huge collaborative effort, and this is something you would need across every different stakeholder in the judicial system in Africa.
Okay. So at this point that we are now, as members of the Global South community, you've mentioned what the lawyers need. Now, I want us to talk about, in a collective way, what do we need as a community of professionals, or as a community of lawyers? What do we need to start doing to enhance our trade and to meet with the globe itself, or where the rest of the world is? Or to your mind, do you think we are behind, or we are with the rest of the world? And if we are not with the rest of the world, what do we need to do as a global community?
See, I think as a global community, my advice has been always that you need to climb hills before mountain. Okay. So take a step by step. First, I think we all need to work on promoting AI literacy. Okay. Unless you promote and create awareness about AI literacy, things like this might be difficult, because you need to train all the lawyers in global south, so that they understand what are the uh, strength and weakness, limitations and risk of AI, and they can accordingly leverage it. Thereafter, there has to be a lot of work on the area of research, right? Because every jurisdiction will have different issues. US may have a different issue when using AI in legal system. Germany may have a different issue. India may have a different issue, and Africa may have a different issue. And why is because the way the legal system has been working traditionally for a couple past years, because some countries work on civil models, some countries work on common law models, and it all will be dependent on that. So I think, but uh, broadly, if I have to recommend, I think every jurisdiction, including Africa, they all should start working on AI literacy. So, and to empower the lawyers to understand how AI to be used in their work, and gradually all these things will definitely take place.
Yeah, uh, that's I mean that's the way to go, and everybody has to play their role, including the government, the law institutions, the members of the different players in the legal system, and as well the lawyers associations as well. They too also have roles to play, as you mentioned, as you've mentioned, to ensure we keep up with the pace of the rest of the world. And so, Abhijeet, before viewers, if you have your comment or if you have question for Abhijeet, you can please write it in the comments so that we ask him while he is with us. He's a very busy man. We don't want to keep him for too long. So far so good. We've got no comments from Facebook, and people have been coming and going, and I think we are rivaling with the Wimbledon single final today, so we don't have much of viewers online, but I know many people will watch the replay. So before we draw the curtains, Abhijeet, what could be your advice to young lawyers and as well students that are currently studying law and I'm coming to meet this era? What would you advise them?
Okay, so my advice is to all law students and lawyers is don't get scared out of AI. I think grab it. It's not enough to be just aware about AI. I think, as I mentioned previously, you need to get your hands dirty, play around AI tools for legal research, document review, and more, and understand what they can do and what they cannot do. Because, and I think lawyers who are gonna master these tools will actually lead the profession way forward. And my advice, especially for all the law student, is use these tools wisely, ethically. Don't become overly dependent. Remember that as a student, your own understanding and reason will be paramount. So embrace AI. Don't depend on it blindly. And these tools can definitely help you to speed up your work, help you to draft your initial document, but always and always verify your output, as it can hallucinate and give you wrong results out of the above ethical issues which we discussed. So I think use it to enhance your skill. Do not replace your understanding of legal principles. And at last, I always recommend to everyone, especially to all the people from legal fraternity, master the law first and then let AI amplify your work.
Great. We have a comment from Facebook from Nirajan Wagle, he's a colleague, a classmate of ours. And he asked, seeing as how much, for example, Gen AI is integrated to open source legal research, which most under-resourced litigants or lawyers might use for legal tasks like Google, bringing in summaries, etc. What role will regulation have in limiting the risk of consumer-facing models, not ones specifically designed for legal purposes? So he's talking about GP, general purpose AI, GPAI. I mean, he's asking what role would regulation have in limiting the risk behind this GPAI of consumers facing them, specifically designed for legal purposes. Or, in addition to that, I would ask, should us lawyers utilize, which I've already asked you and you've said, so I'll explicitly ask now, should us as lawyers utilize general purpose AI? If yes, take you to Nirajan's questions on Facebook.
Okay, as I mentioned, if and I have been always giving it as a word of caution that do not directly use the output. Okay, you have to apply your own skill. You have to apply your own thought process. Say, for example, when you're drafting a contract, and if you've got a contract drafted at first hand, then unless you understand what are the key provisions which should typically be there in a particular kind of contract, then only you will be able to understand what is right and what is wrong. So unless you verify, and for verifying, you of course need what should be the full overview of that particular item or the particular query. So again, use it only as an assistant tool. Do not get overly blind with it, and that will only come if you keep working on your fundamentals. So whatever work it is, either it's for legal work or it's for any of the consumer facing work, I think it all depends on your prompt. It all depends on the kind of model you're using. And at the end, you have to verify yourself. Without verifying, it's very dangerous, especially for the legal industry to use it.
Yeah, I mean, let's answer the question of Nirajan now. What role would regulation play for these GPAIs?
I think in terms of the regulation, as I mentioned, auditing is important. Then I think there has to be some certification programs. Okay, right now what is happening? Everyone comes up and train their large language models, put it online, and then everyone start using it. I think there has to be a regulatory body with whom these models should be getting certifications. Okay, so for example, when we talk about privacy, we have all these ISO certifications. Unless you have ISO certification, you should not allowed to process any of the personal data or sensitive personal information.
Yeah, but the argument to that is that it will stifle innovation. I mean, that's the US approach. I mean, not that people don't want to do that, but they think it will kill the entire process itself.
Okay, so see, there has to be a balance between innovation and the regulation. All right, you can't just be over-regulated, or you can't let freely keeping the model, service provider do whatever way you mean. Because if you if you focus less on regulation, focus more on innovation, then it might cause some risk to the society. If you get over-regulated, then you may hamper the innovation. The balanced approach, I think I would recommend what UK is doing. Okay, so I would recommend Nirajan to please read some of the latest report of UK safety AI reports. There, UK has proposed some of the good models to strike the balance between regulation and innovation. And one of the best approach, which I feel, is the sandbox approach. Okay, so typically all these service providers will be given some sandboxes, and they have to first implement their models there, experiment there, and then the regulator will observe and then give them a license. So I think I would highly recommend him to read that committee report. It's going to be very beneficial for him.
Um, uh, Abhijit, can you elaborate further on this issue of sandbox approach?
Okay, so typically,
Yeah, what is it?
the sandbox is basically it's a kind of a testing environment. If I have to put it in a very simplified manner for the audience, right now there are a lot of risk which even consumers may face, but ideally there should be a testing environment, what is technically called it as sandbox environment, where these models should be deployed, first observed, tested, investigated, and once it satisfies all the parameters which the regulator has set up, then they should be allowed to further deploy their model in the live market stream. That's what is sandbox is all about. And there are some separate regulations on the sandbox environment which UK is working on. And one of the classic case which UK has already worked upon is the financial for the financial industry. So I would highly recommend him. Please read the
Yeah,
FCA report.
he's saying that sandbox is voluntary. So is that a disadvantage?
Yeah, so that's the case, right? Right now it might be voluntarily because we are all trying to understand how AI functions. But in near future, I see all this becoming a mandatory option. The way AI is advancing step by step.
I see. I see. It makes sense that way. Before we go, I think we have 10 more minutes, but I'm not sure we're gonna wait till, like you said, you have something to do. That there's a lot of things going on in Edinburgh today, the festival and so on. And we would want to hold you up for quite a long time. Before you go, what as I don't know if I can say as a block, but it's like there is a line being drawn between the global north and the south, and then as a global south nation, what is our status currently, and what should we do, to ensure we are part of the parcel?
Okay, so if you're talking about the status currently, I think in global south, I I see most of the work related to AI, either it is in for the regulatory front or is whether it's for the industry front, is all at nascent stage. Okay, so right now I see while a lot of countries from global south they're working and they're actively trying to implement AI, but I think there is a lot of more work required around it, and the whole reason is because these nations needs to invest more on research. If you take learnings from the other countries like EU and US, they have been investing a lot on research capabilities. And for that reason, we see how advanced they are working on the technological front. Right now, unfortunately, I think because of a lot of rudimentary issues, global south is not able to work on the research part of it. So I think how I see this happening is unless government starts investing on research, then only we actually become innovators. Otherwise, my apprehension another for global south is we might end up becoming chat gpt rappers. Okay, while we all brand ourselves like we all are using AI, but at the end we are giving all our money to all these models which are coming from US or the other regions.
Yeah.
So I think
So that's take us. That takes.
comes with research.
Yeah. So that takes us to your dream legal tech future in Africa and Asia by 2030.
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned again, we intend to focus only in India right now at this stage. But if you're asking about my vision for year 2030, we intend to automate all the work which transactional lawyers are doing. We want as a transactional lawyer, as a corporate lawyer, you should only be utilizing your time to either for negotiations or structuring the deals, basically, which are more uh, high thinking abilities work, right? And same for litigation lawyers. One of the major issues is again they all are end up with reading bulky files and doing research the entire day long. We intend to cut their entire work and only again focusing on argumentation. And for judiciary, of course, we are working on some of the POCs at this stage, where we intend, and how we see this is, as a judge, you should be only uploading the documents from both the parties and let AI predict the outcome, and as a judge you should be verifying it. And of course, how we right now working is, when AI is predicting the outcome, we want to make it as a explainable AI. That means all the output will be supported by the case laws, will be supported by the statutes, will be supported by all necessary rationale, so that it's not just coming out as a yes or no. It is in fact giving you all logical reasoning and rationale along with the case laws. And as a judge, you should only be verifying the output. Of course, I'm not mentioning that we intend to do all of this for all kind of legal cases, because typically when you go for constitutional or criminal cases, things are more complicated and difficult. But I see this automating at least to some of the most or a small cause claims issues, like check bouncing or the MACT cases. But that's our vision. Let's see where we achieve.
So, Abhijeet, before we finally leave you to go, give us one skill you think every lawyer should learn this week. This is something I'm starting with you.
I think every lawyer this week should be reading on the limitations of AI. Okay, because while we have been actively, I think what I believe, seeing the survey results, lawyers are to some or more using AI, but what they're not understanding is the limitation and risk. So my suggestion to all lawyers who are listening this podcast is, please, for this, spend some time this week, learn about the risk and limitations of AI generated work, so that when you use it in your daily course, then you have a fair understanding what are the inherent limitations, and then you can further use it as a tool instead of getting dependent on it.
That's great. Thank you very much, Abhijeet, for coming to the program. You've been a wonderful guest. We didn't have much comment from Facebook, so this is where we will draw the curtains for today's edition of Legal Tech for Africa. Abhijeet has been our wonderful guest, and he has been sharing an insightful journey that he has been on, and as well as talking about how we upskill ourselves as lawyers in this era. Thank you so much, Abhijeet, for coming, and until we meet again, I hope to see you next week by the grace of God.
Thank you very much, Vivo.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
It was a pleasure to talk to you. And at last, I just want to say you Shubh Ratri.
Shubh Ratri. Thank you. Yes, that was Abhijeet Srivastava, and he was with us as we discussed LegalTech 2.0, upskilling the trade in this AI era. So if you're just tuning in, this is where we draw the curtains. This has been your program, Wivo Legal Tech for Africa. I have been your humble host, Wurie Bah. Thank you so much for tuning in. Until next week, which we will have a wonderful guest. Bye-bye.